I gave you guys the data morn. R.I.P. Pope Francis. And now let's talk about how the Catholic Church was one of the biggest enslavers and profiteers of enslavement in colonial Latin America, to the point that they had more money than the king. So the Jesuits were a Catholic order, Society of Jesus, founded in 1540. So we all know Portugal is the one who started chattel slavery, and Pope Nicholas V actually blessed slavery, and he gave Portugal the right to enslave Africans and indigenous people to propagate this Christian empire. That was the goal, and achieved. So Jesuits were the biggest slave holders in places like Brazil, Peru, Colombia, and they would preach to enslaved people that they were saving their souls while selling their bodies. So Jesuits were massive landowners in places like Paraguay, Peru, Bolivia. They owned sugar plantations, mines, cattle ranches. They were in Colombia, Mexico. They were huge slave traders. So they enslaved people and traded people, but they were not paying taxes. But in places like Cuba, they implemented a 10% tax if you sold enslaved people. So how are you not paying taxes, but you taxing people? Make that make sense. Also, Jesuits started Georgetown, and y'all know they sold 272 people to pay tax. How are you having debt when you do not pay taxes? Also was all about redemption through Christ, where enslaved people could actually pay for their freedom. And of course, they taxed them and got rich off these. And I know you're like, Nadia, how did that happen? How can a slave buy freedom if they don't have money? That's in another video, because that's really juicy, because I repeat the lie that Black people own slaves. So 20% off my webinar. Y'all know I got to promote my webinar. I know I got to promote it. It's this Friday, the 25th. I won't be talking about the church, but I will be connecting a lot of the stuff and making sense out of the nonsense. So the webinar will really give you a good understanding around Latinidad, a lot of the issues, some of the freedom communities, Mejora la Raza, Mestizaje, and then some of these Hollywood stars that get forgotten. And the last thing I want to say is, modernly, Brazil is actually fighting for reparations from the church for all the horrendous things they did in Brazil. So question to you, do you think the church owes people reparations? A lot of these things were justified by the church in the Bible as descendants of Ham, like Africans were descendants of Ham. So this was a curse, and they had to wash themselves of the blood of Africa. So we bring back this painting, Ham's redemption. So these are themes that keep coming back.